From one of those actions, there were awarded 2 Navy Crosses, and now I'm taxing my memory, but I think there were 3 Silver Stars, 5 Bronze Stars with the Battle V for Valor, and half the crew, 14, were awarded the Purple Heart. But the good news about that whole thing is that we did not lose a sailor. A lot of us got nicked here and nicked there, but we did not lose a sailor. There were, I have forgotten, quite frankly, the amount of bullet holes and rocket holes that were in the ship. The ship was attacked, I think, with 7 RPGs. Those were rocket-propelled grenades that were of Soviet manufacture. And the Viet Cong would mount those on bamboo sticks and stick the sticks into the riverbank and angle them so that hopefully they would hit the ship. They were not very successful with that tactic, and so the time we got hit in August of '70, they had changed their tactics. And so they were shoulder firing the weapon, which is the way it was intended to be fired. And then they were firing with small arms and small machine guns. And I have forgotten. The ship was aluminum, as I said, not a lot of protection. And I want to say there were over 200 bullet holes in the ship. And one of the sailors, as they were taking pictures of this, not only for historical purposes, but also to send ahead for the repair depot. That around a lot of those bullet holes, they put little hearts to show how much they loved that whole thing. Well, a day on the life of that ship, particularly underway, you know, you had 3 watches. And there are 4-hour watches, and if you start at midnight, it goes midnight to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 12, and then it starts again. And so every one of those sailors would be standing 2 watches. And so between watches, you grab your meals and you grab some sleep and you do your regular job and keep up with the administrative side if you're on the say the supply side of the ship, or maintenance side if you're a gunner's mate or down in the engine room. So their life is very, very busy at sea, and they don't get a lot of rest. But every night on Navy ships, I'm assuming it is still being done, but in those days, every night there was a movie. And it was the old 16 millimeter, you know, the large reels, and what we would do, there would be movie exchanges at every naval base, and so you could go out and check out the movies, and then you'd have movies to show, and hope that none of the reels were broken, or you know, sometimes that old celluloid would just crack on you, and you'd stop in the middle of a movie to repair it so you could continue on. So that's sort of a tradition, you know. Everyone's not on watch has a chance to go see the movie, eat a little popcorn, and commiserate with their shipmates. When we were operating up and down the river, the Navy was making plans to move sea float ashore. And to do that, because of the marshiness and conditions there ashore, they were bringing sand, barges of sand up that river. There was a tug company out of New Orleans, and we would see them all the time, and they would be towing those loaded barges up this very torturous and quick-running river. It was not an easy job. And in fact, one time we were in a firefight, and the tug came right through the middle of the firefight because there's nothing they can do. I mean, they're towing these barges, and so And by the way, they did get $100 every time they got fired at. So that was a little added incentive. But these tug guys were great. Now, what the tugs did not have were movies. And what we did not have were steaks. And so we ate very well because I traded movies for steaks with those tug drivers. You know, on this ship was very different in that on a bigger ship, you'd have numerous cooks. And on a Navy ship, you have 3 meals a day, plus what they call midrats, midnight rations. And so cooks are very, very busy. And they tend on the bigger ships to use recipes that call for the ingredients to feed 100 or 200. And so it's well regulated. And a menu will rotate on about a 6-week basis. So except for your breakfast and maybe your midrats, you wouldn't see the same meal for 6 weeks. But now on PG, we only had one cook, and so he could only do so much. And so we had what we called an open galley. That meant that any sailor could go down there and fix whatever he wanted. And so there were always meals that the cook would put together, but then those sailors could substitute whatever they wanted any time during the day or night. And so it was a much different feeding process on that small ship as compared to a larger one. Well, as I mentioned a moment ago, there were so many rates where there was only one trained sailor on board. I called it pick of the litter. We literally had pick of the litter, and so on a normal ship, if you have a crew, say, of 350, and through the various machinations, you know, people get sick, people go to the hospital, people get transferred, and there's no one immediately available to take their place. You know, you may have 10% of your crew at any one time, or 10% of your billets are not filled. Not true on a PG. They kept us fully manned, and they sent us the best they could find. Now, I was telling this story yesterday. I mentioned that I am a Naval Academy graduate, and very proud of that. And the Academy puts out a very fine product. But because I had pick of the litter, if you will, I told the Navy that I did not want any Naval Academy graduates, officers aboard, because my officers were very junior, and in fact 2 of those officers, that was their first tour. They had not been on any other ships before. And so the Navy was a little aghast with my request and asked me why. And I said, it's very simple. I want officers who have known girls for the last 4 years and are not going to be spending all their time chasing a skirt somewhere, as many young Naval Academy graduates are inclined to do. So they honored my request.